Welcome to the Intercut podcast and weekend must watch, where we wade our way through the latest in theaters, streaming, and on demand. I am your co-host Zachary Shevich, and joining me, he's coming for the surface world. It's Arturo Zurita.
We got the sweater up top. Right underneath is the shorts, those shorty shorts, those Namor shorts. It's good to have that representation because I was he had an interview at Noche when he was talking about Captain America. He's got the mask, but all the Latino boys out there will be able to put those shorts on with no shirts. It's going to be even easier. There's less for you to carry around for the
Yeah.
Halloween costume, I guess. But
No, I mean, I like that
great
they
weekend
even
for him.
gave them their own little like hand gesture. I wonder how long until we get those like sad Chadwick Boseman poses from Tenoch,
Yeah,
having to do the pose over and over again. But how many
exactly.
weeks in a row do you think I can give you Namor based intros and properly gas you up? How long is that high gonna last?
I mean, what is he, 5,000 years old or something like that? So I think we got a good amount of time until the sequel at least, or the Disney
Nice,
series.
nice. So yeah, we are talking about the latest in theaters, streaming, and on demand, as we do every week here on the Weekend Must Watch. But it's a lighter week in the new releases because everybody cleared a
Nothing's
path
off.
for Black Panther. I mean, Wakanda Forever, obviously the huge film at the box office this weekend, absolutely dominating the second largest opening of 2022 so far, although did not beat out the other big Marvel release of the year, the Multiverse of Madness. Although kind of funny in
That's
retrospect,
different.
it's a little funny in retrospect looking back on all the hype they built up for Multiverse of Madness and like what did that movie actually really do in the greater MCU?
I think it established some things that when you watch this new one, it makes you go like, "Oh my gosh, someone's gone." Except that movie from 2 movies ago said that we could bring anybody, and then the last movie
Yeah,
when they're in Asgard said that they might be able to bring anybody. But
yeah,
I think it opens up little things here and there, like a lot of the after credits do, where they might be able to go back and take a different route if they wanted to. But I think the
totally.
difference between this one and Multiverse of Madness is that Multiverse had a lot of hype in terms of it. When you compare the fake cameos, I think this has become a new ritual when
Yeah.
it comes to Marvel. Marvel or Multiverse of Madness kept saying, I don't know, maybe Iron Man, and they would just play coy about it. This new
Yeah.
one would play coy about Doctor Doom. So it's like they all have that one thing to attract people. But I think in terms of cameos, that's where Multiverse of Madness had people coming back over and over and over again because
That's
you
the
didn't get an
thing.
HD clip of that scene until it dropped on Disney Plus. So
Yeah.
um,
All the fan speculation and hype around Multiverse of Madness is like who could show up? Anybody could show up. We all have to be there opening weekend so we don't get spoiled. And with this one, I think there's less of that sort of suspense. They've kind of downplayed the like, oh well, who's the next Black Panther gonna be?
mhm.
And really focused on the more like somber kind of reckoning with this collective loss. And I don't know if like the idea of going to the movie theater to grieve is necessarily like as strong of a motivator as like maybe we're gonna see the new X-Men castings in this movie, but it's not like a bad number whatsoever.
Nah, it's just
180 million dollars.
it is not bad at all, especially for a movie where we were just talking about people going into a film excited to see somebody. I mean, the lead that people were excited in the first one isn't in this one, so you're right. I was telling Alina afterwards, I'm like, we're gonna get to a point, right, where we go into these movies going, what? There's no casualties? What? No one's dying? Oh, a whole war? Are you ready to go for like whatever the third end game is 10 years from now? I'm going like, I don't want to
Mhm.
leave the house. I don't want to go pay $15 to go see my heroes die. Like it's gonna get to that point
Yeah,
where,
I
where
mean
I
by
feel like
then
we're
it'll
gonna be
be
begging for it to be cliche.
yeah, and by then we'll be paying $25 for movie tickets,
Think
but
I did that in my head. I was like, I can't believe I said 15. I don't know what discount Tuesdays I'm going on. Still having hope. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it had a pretty decent reception over the weekend with Black Panther making good box
Mhm.
office. Just the word of mouth of it and people having different discussions from it. And as we discussed, because we have a whole spoiler one after credits up on Intercut, just looking at that poster, seeing how well um, the script and the way that they were able to approach it with all of the changes because of Chadwick's passing, to still
Mhm.
be able to take what was originally that element of Chadwick facing Namor and then having to substitute that with what would be his sister's journey against Namor. And just this poster beautifully puts it. the whole movie, especially rewatching it again, you just see how they parallel in every way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
From Wakandans always coming from the top. Obviously, you got Tenoch's group always coming from the bottom. You got the fire
Yeah.
versus the water. Just a bunch of the parallels with how they ascend the throne. And then a bunch of other spoilers that I don't want to get to, but I think they do a really beautiful job with it, and I think it merits a lot of good stuff for the characters on rewatches. Whether people think it's better than the first, I mean, that's up for people to decide. But
Hmm.
uh, after having a week to sit on it and a couple rewatches, I think it's a very solid entry.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a solid film for sure. I'm definitely not putting it in the same class as the first Black Panther, which I feel like is just a little bit more cohesive and doesn't have as many of the like shoehorned in plot elements as this one does. I do wonder, and I'm not saying this having a firm answer. I'm genuinely asking you, are we grading Black Panther Wakanda Forever on a curve? Because this is perhaps one of the most cursed movies in production, like or that was in production, because like it it's so unfathomable to have lost somebody as immense as Chadwick, and not just immense but immense to this property. Like, are we just giving it a little bit of a pass because of all that, or is it genuinely doing working, I think, in the long term?
I mean, can you name me other movies where we've lost somebody? I think of Heath Ledger when he passed, right? And what that added to the
Mhm.
Joker. And you could argue, are we adding more to the Joker's performance? I think
Right.
enough time has passed where I
Yeah.
don't think that's the case. But at that moment, definitely it hyped it up. What was his role, though, that he was in where other people came in? The Dr. Parnassus one? I don't think that added anything to that movie. I think the
Yeah,
movie
true.
still needs to have an element of it being good. Will people add extra stuff to it? For sure, but I think this may be a movie where it warrants it. I think this is a movie where introspectively, they were able to kind of showcase their grief up on screen. It is still a Marvel product. I've heard this discussion of like, can a Marvel product properly show grief up on screen? Can it get there? And then halfway through, you see a cameo appearance from someone in order to push a show, and that kind of cuts it out. Maybe, but I still think that there's a merit of it that's good, and I don't think it's bad to take into account the turmoils that happened in its production because that's technically what the movie's about.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is so closely linked to what happened. Like it's making uh, the outside world context the text of the movie in a way,
Yeah.
and so you can't just sort of like ignore that half of it. I mean,
The first,
you
no?
know,
Like what you're saying right
yeah,
now is don't take into account the context leading into this one. Well, then don't take into account the context leading into the first Black Panther, which is kind of the whole point of the first Black
right,
Panther and what it's supposed to represent. So I'm a
right.
person who thinks context matters always.
Yeah, you can't really remove a movie from the cultural moment it comes in, right? Like movies
Yeah.
are elevated, or sometimes they're made worse by when they are released and how we all feel
That's it.
about things when they're released. So yeah, I mean,
It's all
it's
timing.
certainly like I think a lot of people, myself included, have our hopes up for the had our hopes up for this film, I should say, and we're rooting for its success. But I don't think we are deluding ourselves into giving it a favorable review just because we want it to be good. I think it's genuinely good. I think there's a lot of genuinely interesting stuff there, and we've talked more at length in our after credits with spoilers, talking about the types of thematic elements that Ryan Coogler's so good at bringing into
That's the
these
thing. Yeah.
stories.
We're
And
a big fan of
there's
him.
just yeah, there's a lot of stuff to really take away from this film that I think works. So, you know, as much as I want to second guess myself, I do think I ultimately think this is, one of the better Marvel films, and certainly one of the best ones we've gotten in a little while. Gustav in the live stream comments asked, "Do you think they will do a movie giving a deeper look into Tenochtitlan's character, Namor?" We did talk about it briefly in our Black Panther: Wakanda Forever after credits, but I think you were saying, maybe we'll see him in another movie, maybe see him in a Disney Plus show. Do you have any strong feelings one way or another?
I'm only gonna say movie because of the water effects, and I don't want him to go cheap on the water effects. I want
Right.
him to take whatever the boy's doing over there for his December Avatar movie and apply all
Mhm.
of those great effects to the sequel. And I think I'd rather that money definitely be invested into a movie rather than a series. But we'll see because another worry was I feel that the whole Wakandan storyline and everybody from there works better as a group. I feel that that's what this movie exemplifies, and that's the
Right.
whole point of the phrase Wakanda Forever. And you were mentioning the Namor's people have the same thing, but theirs is
Welcome.
the Talocan Rise. So they both have very similar lines, and I don't know. I think splitting them into a series or individualizing them isn't the smartest thing. but I did want to give props to something because we had just talked about another superhero movie last week, and you mentioned how you felt that Black Adam was showcasing way too many characters that while they may be the originals in the comics, like in the zeitgeist, we just got movies where we've seen characters like this. So Zach,
Hmm.
I'm gonna ask you for a world where we have so many underwater superheroes and knowing good and well that we're about to get another Aquaman around the corner,
Mm.
knowing that Namor's original comic book origins came before Aquaman, did you go into this movie at any point having that same kind of reservations that you had for Black Adam, or did you not even realize it and go, wow, this feels like an original character? I completely forgot about all the other underwater people.
Well, no, I mean, you know what? When they do actually go and visit the underwater, the Talocan, I did think like, oh, this kind of feels like Aquaman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the wonder that I'm supposed to feel at that moment, the wonder that I know some other people who like the film more than me felt, maybe I would have felt a little more of that wonder. A, had I not seen a film like Aquaman beforehand, or B, had I not seen the trailer for Avatar 2, The Way of the Water beforehand, and seen how much better the CGI looks in that film. Yeah, I mean, I think there is something about when a thing isn't a novel to you on screen, whether or not it came first in the comic books. That's just context that I don't have. But I have context of what I've seen on the big screen, and the water stuff, I guess, just wasn't as impressive as maybe it could have been, wasn't as
Sure.
transportive as maybe you want it to be, because we've seen maybe other attempts at it or better versions of it, not too in somewhat recently, I should say.
Yeah, I agree. But as his character, did you feel like,
Mm.
oh, this is yet again another Fishman, or did it feel like, oh, this is a different, unique individual that has been added, and I want to see more of him?
Right. I would say I felt like it's more unique. Again, this is going back to what we were talking about with Kugler, injecting it with so much more of a thematic resonance and imbuing all of this Mayan myth
Yeah.
into the story, into the character design, and drawing those parallels between the Talocan and the Wakandans. I think all of that separated Namor from maybe somebody like Aquaman, at least for me. And also, Tenoch got ripped, but he's not exactly Jason Momoa in the part.
That too, which is exactly why I appreciate this. I'm very curious to see what he's gonna do. They mentioned that Tenoch is writing a book because in approaching this and talking about the different culture dynamics, Ryan Coogler's like, I didn't realize he was writing a book on this. So he's like very well versed in this idea of communication and just the culture clashes. So I'm very curious to see where they expand on him. I hope they do the Civil War thing. Civil War is one of my favorite movies because one of the best side characters and their introduction was Black Panther. So I can only
Mhm.
imagine, the gift that is to be the cameo or the supporting character here, and then being able to take it on your own. So we'll see where it goes. But overall,
Yeah,
solid.
very. Yeah, definitely. So that was, the big release at the weekend. We talked about how it's making a lot of money, and we talked about how we talked about spoilers elsewhere on the channel. So make sure you check out our after credits review. But Art, what else have you been watching that was released over the past week?
I mean, they say they've been waiting for Neymar for I don't know how many years, but they've been waiting for the one and only Lohan to come back too. And yeah, she went trending coming back from her 3-year hiatus, coming in to produce a movie. Her family's in this. Her sister has a cameo appearance, and she goes all out. There's even some a couple of homages to some old. I don't want to call them old because that makes me old too. Some classic Lindsay Lohan movies, some that Netflix kind of duped her into doing. But
Yeah.
overall, this is your standard Netflix fare that they come out with on a yearly basis, trying to get it early before we even get to Thanksgiving. And it's Ed Harris gets into an accident. Nobody likes her because she's super rich and her dad runs all the resorts. But when she gets into an accident, she loses her memory, and she must either try to recollect that world of poshness, or maybe change and become a different person as
Right.
this other individual who has his more of like a Airbnb establishment tries to keep his place afloat. Obviously, he's a widower. He's got a single child. His grandmother's there, always trying to help, and it's your basic type of Netflix fare when it comes to the Disney movies. Because I don't know if you remember, they've built their cinematic universe. So we're at this point where in Netflix movies, you will see them refer to other Netflix movies. So there's a whole sequence in this film where she is actually wild. I love how she does the remote thing too. There's a whole sequence of this movie where they're calling back to all of the I don't know, I guess this world that's connected. So if you've been following the Netflix Christmas Cinematic Universe, I would say this is a little bit higher in there. It's not a great movie in any means, and you're definitely going in there just to support Lindsay. But for what it's supposed to be, uh, it's like the best version of a Netflix Hallmark movie with a star you
Yeah.
guessed.
Well, no, that's the right way to describe it, right? It is that kind of Hallmark thing that Netflix has been doing, sort of putting out these kind of cheaper, treaclier, broad romantic comedies
Trends
that,
for a week, goes away.
yeah,
They got what they
exactly.
needed.
And it's, and Netflix has identified certain markets that other people have made successful and tried to eat them up. And the Hallmark movie is definitely one of those that they've been really pushing hard, I guess, because they can kind of churn them out. It's relatively easy to
Easily.
do a lot of them, especially the Christmas ones. We're going to be getting a lot of these Christmas themed Netflix movies over the next couple of weeks. We already have a couple, despite, like you said, we're still not even at Thanksgiving yet.
I told Zach Hulu came out with like 8 last week. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, they're jumping the gun for sure. I don't know if I'm yet in the spirit for a holiday movie, and maybe that's what kept me from really, really enjoying this one. But I'm also not a Hallmark movie person. I think whether or not you're a Hallmark movie person, and there's just a broadness to the way it's written here, like a lack of subtext to anything anyone says ever in this film. That just, I don't know. Very easy to put on in the background, and I'm glad our girl Lindsay is working. She seems decently well.
That scene right there where she's trying to make breakfast, it's such a mess. It literally looks like what Netflix does when they're trying to put these movies together with the script. They just throw in anything that possibly sticks. So if you're a fan of Lindsay, go watch it. Nice little Easter eggs to some other stuff. But overall, not too much from there. But there was another one that we had the privilege to be able to see at home, but is in theaters right now before it comes wide on Apple TV Plus, and that is a movie that I didn't understand when I saw the trailer during the World Series, and I was like, wait, they're doing a Scrooge, but it's not really Scrooge. It's a musical about the ghosts of Christmas past who have been reformed, meaning that it's not the ghost that came to Scrooge. Nah, this is in the future when Scrooge is one of the three who's going to try to find the next person who needs to be reformed. But what happens when, one, you find a person who may be unreformable, or two, you may be looking at your past and wondering, why am I still here trying to reform other people? Should Scrooge retire at this point? He's like a pastor. He's like Father Stu. He's converted, and he's come to a point where he just wants to sin again or something. He just wants to feel human once more. And you have performances over here by Will Ferrell, Ryan Reynolds. Like I said, it's also a musical, and it's over 2 hours long. I did not have my chips in the favor for this movie. And there are points in this movie where it really doesn't work. And it was all right by the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of not the worst.
It's like you want to hate it, don't you? Like I wrote so many things to hate it, and then I'll just be like, it's killing time. It's not bad.
Yeah, like first of all, Will Ferrell tends to take a lot of these comedies that, like, I love Will Ferrell. He's one of the most gifted comedic actors we have, but he does take a lot of just sort of bland, uninteresting stuff, and it, especially pairing him with Ryan Reynolds, the king of putting himself in bland, uninteresting stuff, you kind of just get a vibe that this movie is like slapped together and not really like a genuine there's no like passion behind it. It's kind of like, well, Apple TV Plus needs a Christmas movie. But I think one of the big things this movie has in its favor is that the music is written by Pasek and Paul, who I'm hit or miss on, but when they hit, I like them a lot.
What they do?
I'm pretty sure these are the La La Land guys, aren't they?
Oh, are they? That's a pretty good crew to get.
Let me double check that before I put they did La La Land, but they've also, on the other hand, they did Dear Evan Hansen, so it's not exactly a sterling track record there.
Somewhere in the middle right here for this one.
Exactly. Yeah, there are some songs that are pretty good. I do like the Good Afternoon song, and I think one of the things is, on the one hand, they've chosen a couple leads in Will Ferrell, Ryan Reynolds, as well as Octavia Spencer, who just don't really have the singing voices to pull off this kind of musical theater. But on the other hand, the songs are mostly charming enough that they're able to just be warm and fun. There's one song in particular where that plays over the credits where I feel like Will Ferrell is doing a good job of sort of making it silly how much he's not suited to that kind of singing style. I wish they leaned more into that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
there's some good jokes here and there. I'd say it's like a maybe 25% hit miss record on the jokes, and that was enough. I thought it's fine, not necessarily like the best thing to watch, but an easygoing holiday movie. I didn't hate it. I definitely didn't
Yeah.
dislike it the way I anticipated I would.
I guess to me, it's because I hold Alf to such a high regard that I know
Yeah,
what he's capable of.
right.
So because of that, I see this and I go like, okay, looks fine, looks cute. But there was one point where I'm just looking at them and I'm just thinking, Vin Diesel and The Rock counted punches.
Right.
Sometimes I feel like these two count punchlines. But it's all right. It's going to be on Apple TV Plus next week. I think that's the perfect way to watch it.
Yeah.
This playing in the background, considering that a whole just segment will be a 5-minute musical number, is it
Right.
the perfect thing to just have playing during the holidays. So
Yeah. And I will give it two more things. It's
I
not
think you say
nearly
2 more
shot-
stars. I'm like, damn.
No. It's not nearly as well shot as, for example, Spielberg's West Side Story, but I like that they
Okay.
actually, will present the dancing. They'll pull out. You can see the ensemble. It's not so close that they've just sort of reduced it all to background noise. That's a plus in its favor. And then also the story. You mentioned how it's kind of a weird setup. I was pretty I was pretty like bothered by how weird and like it felt like it's trying too hard to modernize A Christmas Story, and then as it went along, like it actually had some surprising twists and turns to it. So I got into the story more than I expected to. So it's a movie that was off-putting at the start and won me over. So I guess that's another credit
Yeah.
in its favor.
That's a credit for sure. So catch this one in theaters right now or next week on Apple TV Plus. But there is a documentary. I don't know the
Ooh.
release on this, but we're both big fans of this one.
Yeah.
Bad
I
Axe.
think we
It premiered at
first.
South by Southwest
Yeah.
this year. It's a documentary that covers a restaurant and its family that runs it during the 2022 summer or 2020 summer, if you recall that summer, and
Mhm.
everything that went down. And because it's shot from one of the family members who's going to school to become a filmmaker, I found it fascinating the insights that he was able to get, not only from running this business with his family, but seeing the parallels of what his family had to go to back home in the East, and then what they were going through at that point in time. And I know that this was been able to get a slew of awards while it's been doing its press runs, being able to snatch some nominations, and hopefully it's able to get a release near you, if not in the coming weeks, now that it's getting out, a VOD release, because I think this is
It's
definitely
gonna
one.
be on VOD on Friday.
No streaming though?
No streaming. It's a IFC
You know
Films.
it's way
so-
harder to pay. Wait, it's what?
IFC Films.
Oh, maybe AMC Plus, maybe, because I know that they do the IFC
yeah.
for their bundle. But then who gets AMC Plus? No, I definitely think this is a documentary worth watching. But I know
Yeah.
with the medium of it being docs and then also it being heavy subject matter, sometimes it's easier to have this available on a streaming service than it is to leave the house and have one of your AMC check-ins or whatever it may be. But I still think that Bad Axe is
Yeah.
definitely, before the end of the year, one to watch for your best documentary list.
For sure. This is maybe my favorite documentary of the year so far. I'd have to sit down and really look at the list, but I just think there's so much that I really appreciated about the handling of the subject matter here. I don't know if you specifically said that this is an Asian American family and they run an Asian
Oh, yeah?
restaurant in a red state, and that element of it with the starting of the coronavirus and all of the Asian scares that happen. Or like hate, I guess, that happened in the early days of that
Animosity.
virus.
Yeah.
Animosity was a good word for it. Yeah. That all really comes into play and contributes to just the overwhelming stuff that's going on with this family. I think for me, Bad Axe, more than any documentary I've seen, sort of depicts how it felt like to live through 2020 in America and just all the sort of like political and social discord while trying to maintain a level of personal health given the threat of an unknown virus. And like it's just balancing all of these external conflicts with the family dynamic on top of it, it's just so intimate and so powerful. I would highly, highly recommend it. You know, you said it's maybe hard to convince people to do that VOD budget, but look, if you are a fan of documentaries, particularly ones that are taking a look at our modern world and doing so in a way that doesn't really feel like overbearing, it just feels honest and true, I'd give Bad Axe my highest recommendation.
Especially the family dynamics. You go into it thinking it's going to be
Yeah,
the family against all the external forces, and it's how those external forces affect the family, and they start like
totally.
going at each other. That I thought was very effective. But yeah, during that summer, if you did not leave the house, for those who did, this is exactly what it looked like.
Yep.
It was pretty crazy. So definitely have that one on your radar. I know there was another VOD pick we had here. I'm not sure if any of us saw that one that's on our list. Did you see the other
Yeah,
documentary we have on our radar, or not
I
yet?
did. I did.
All
I
right,
did.
talk about it.
All right, so let's talk about Is That Black Enough for You? This is one that we missed when it was at New York Film Festival, but it is now available on Netflix. Uh, Easy enough. Everybody should definitely think about watching this one because I think it is a fascinating piece of filmmaking. Directed by Elvis Mitchell, uh, who made his name in film criticism, and you can tell he's a guy who has a deep
Oh.
knowledge for film. This is his debut documentary, and it's really a very, it's at times a very personal but also at times a very academic look at the history of 1970s black cinema and the era in which the blaxploitation movement was at its strongest, and you had all of these films that actually catered to a black audience. I loved how he was able to kind of guide you through history because he's not just sort of listing different famous movies or famous movie stars. He starts with early Hollywood and talks about the types of roles that black actors got then, and speaks to Sam Jackson and Harry Belafonte and Whoopi
Yeah, the
Goldberg and
talking
asks
heads
for
are
their,
crazy.
yes, he's got like basically like the who's who of people you would want interviewed for the subject, and like really interrogates them about how it felt watching those types of black characters on screen and whether or not they saw themselves in movies and what it was like as you move towards the 1970s, and the people like Harry Belafonte, the people like Sidney Poitier, the people like Pam Grier started to ascend in Hollywood and carve new roles for black actors.
Hmm.
So it's also one of those films like what was the history of folk horror one that we talked about a little while ago?
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, it's one of those films where you'll be watching it and just constantly adding movies to your letterboxed watched list because there's so many interesting films referenced that I hadn't watched before, or sometimes that I didn't even know about, and they put such interesting historical context on them that it just sort of like changes your bearings for what the film industry was like. I don't know. It's a deep dive into a subject that I don't know as much about as I would like to, but yeah, I found it to be revelatory. You know, I think we are sometimes
Nice.
apprehensive when we get a documentary like this. Like, is it actually going to change your mind or open up your eyes or anything like
Yeah.
that, or is it going to just recount things that everybody already knows? This is
Exactly.
definitely the former. This is a very, very
Beautiful.
interesting, helpful look into cinema history.
And you think they do it all in that 2 hour and 50 minute runtime?
I mean, yeah, you know, I
Because you
could
had
take a
mentioned the
miniseries of it
Bewitched one.
because
Exactly.
right,
Because the Bewitched one's like that's three
or
hours
brainwashed,
and change.
or no, Bewitched. You're
Um,
right, Bewitched. You're right.
Yeah, not brainwashed. Not brainwashed. Definitely not brainwashed. That
Yeah.
is the epitome of the opposite of this type of movie.
Yes.
But like you said, in being able to dive in so much that after that 3 hours, it's like you
Mm-hmm.
feel like you just sat and you could rewatch this. You could rewatch that documentary and pick more things from it the more that you watch it because of how personal it is to the filmmaker. I love when they're able to get the academic side, but it doesn't become like a lesson. What makes it
Yeah.
ingrained, not in your mind, but also in your heart, you're like, oh, this is serious stuff, is when you get to hear that personality from the filmmaker. I think that's something that Bewitched
Mm-hmm.
was able to do. I think that that's something that the Sasha Jenkins doc from last week that we talked about a couple weeks ago on Apple for Louis Armstrong, I think is able to
Yeah.
do successfully. And well, I'm excited for this one because I know it's on Netflix. Uh,
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to
No,
catching.
it's awesome because Elvis will point out a iconic moment that Sidney Poitier had on screen, and then he'll cut away to Sam Jackson saying like, "Oh, I saw the movie with my mom, and when that happened, I asked her what happened." And like it's got both the academic and the personal in it, and
That's beautiful.
I think it
Okay.
just really really enhances your knowledge and experience of all that stuff.
You have this as a contender for the end of the year. 'Cause don't forget, you got to
I
start
mean,
contending on the
personally,
docs too.
right. I mean,
Shortlisted, I guess I
personally,
would say.
yeah.
Yeah, let's not talk top 5, but like in the short list. Short list is 15, 20.
Yeah, I mean,
Always
the
forget.
Oscars. I feel like the Oscars. I think it is 15. Maybe it's 20 for the best documentary shortlist. I feel
For
like the
Intercut, it's 50.
Oscars. The Oscars tend to favor more issues documentaries, and occasionally they'll do biopics of people or biodocs of people they find important. This is more in the like video essay, F is for fake kind of mold that I
Mhm.
think they tend to not award as much, but I think it's excellent and it'll certainly be a contender for my list.
All right. I'm excited for that one. Looking forward to it. Like we said, it was New York. I think it was
Yeah.
TIFF, and it was even Chicago. So it's got all of the festival little feathered ornaments that you need on the cover. The
Yeah, all
final
those
one for the
laurels.
movie. You know, final one from the movies that we had isn't even a movie. It's a little series. I don't know how big you are in
Hmm.
Neal Brennan. Um, or at this point
Hit
in
or miss, I
time,
feel
his
like.
co-workers. Yeah,
Yeah.
to me, Neal Brennan as a writer is way better than a comedian, and this is one of those where he's
Yes.
kind of talking about how if you've never seen Neal Brennan stuff, he was a co-writer on the Chappelle Show.
That's his
How
claim
that
to fame for
relationship
sure.
ended, that's his claim to fame, and in anything that you ever see, he's always going to mention that, right?
Yeah.
So him and Chappelle, it's because of Chappelle that he's able to get it. So I may argue that he was writing some of the jokes that y'all may think may have come from Chappelle. That is a different issue for a different time. I would recommend Three Mics because this is one where he gets into it. And I'd say this is a better stand-up than his other one. In this new one, he's kind of reminiscing on what is wrong with me in that I can't just go up and do stand-up, right? That's the one difference between him and Chappelle. Chappelle goes up, he speaks. We'll say a crazy amount of stuff, but there's a difference between the organic form of just standing up and then doing, I guess, what people would consider a gimmick. In Three Mics, he was doing different comedy in each mic. One was the comedy, one was like experimental, and then the other one was emotional. In this one, my man has blocks up on the stage. So he's got like emoji blocks, like the things that you have behind you that are on the paper, but they're like actual blocks. And he picks one up and he'll start discussing something. And I think he gets into some nice pockets of things to talk about. But then at the same time, not really. He's venting a lot. Sometimes he'll say things where it's like, that sounds like a you problem. I don't like it when someone who's such an acclaimed writer,
Right.
wanted to be a stand-up comedian ends up feeling a lot like David Spade's special from earlier in the year. David Spade gave a whole thing about how he felt he put a little too much weight, and no one in the audience is laughing about his very minute personal detail. That's this man's entire hour and 3 minutes here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neal
so I'm kind
Brennan-
of like you. I like Neal Brennan, but sometimes he does too much. And half the time he's telling me, am I doing too much? I feel like I'm doing too much. Am I doing too much? I think I'm doing too much. And I'm like, do less, I guess.
He's one of those comedians who I feel like has reached a point where he finds certain things interesting and will say them without regard to whether or not his audience finds them interesting too, because he feels like he's had enough success that it's worth. If I think it's good, I'm going to throw it out there. And there's a lot of stuff that I just kind of feel like save it for your notes draft, dude. Like, we don't need to hear all your thoughts. There's definitely like better. Yeah, exactly. There's some better ones. And yeah, does it feel a little too much like he's trying to almost like recreate the Three Mics vibe with blocks?
Yeah, because he mentions the Three Mics thing, and he's like, what am I doing here with these blocks? I can't ever have it be normal. It's got to be something else. Best example I could put in, I guess, is a spoiler for the comedy, but not necessarily. He is doing the whole show with a wrist bracelet that's supposed to remind him to smile by shocking him every 10 minutes. That's
cool.
The stand-up guy that we got here. However, Zach, I thought you would find this interesting. It is directed by Derek Del Guadio, your boy.
Oh,
who did.
Yeah.
What'd he do? You really liked the thing that he had this week or this year?
Yeah, in it
or last year. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, in and of itself. I know this was one that Zach really liked. So again, this
is
bro. This is blocks the way it should have been done. And you know that I didn't love this
Right.
one as much as you did. Like, you really
Yeah.
like this one, and I'll have to revisit it soon. Neal Brennan's show made me appreciate this one way more once I saw that it was Derek who had directed it. I was like, that's what he was going for. Okay, now it makes sense. So
All right.
there you go. I felt that would be an apt
There's
connection to make right there.
no sleight of hand in blocks.
Yeah, the sleight of hand was that he got me to watch the hour and 3 minutes of something that wasn't as good. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'll end it with this. I legit only clicked it because I thought it said Neal Breen, that really bad director that everyone's always reviewing on YouTube, and I thought he had a movie on Netflix, and I was like, "Let's go! This will be my first one." And it was a stand-up special that let you know how dark and turmoil times we are in the social media world. But yeah, Neal Brennan Blocks. That was the one comedy special for this week. I highly doubt you want to talk about the other stand-ups that happened this week, but I feel like we're getting into a point of time in comedy where, I don't know, Zach, like with stand-ups and everything that you have out there, it's going to be a very interesting world, the way that streaming services make deals, I think, for the coming years. Your opinion on, is it important to allow people to express whatever jokes they want? Who gets held responsible? Should it be the streaming service? Should it be the artist who's making it? I don't know. This may not be the discussion for this episode, but especially with a lot of stuff that was talked this week, it's like the discussion of where to host comedians. This year, we began this year with a comedian getting slapped.
It's a tough year to be a comedian.
It is tough. It's like the comedians are going through the YouTube adpocalypse this year, and I feel sorry for them. It's pretty much what I'm trying to make the point of here. But yeah, I don't know, man. You didn't get to see the specific monologue sketch I am referring to from this past weekend, have you?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I've heard mixed things. I've heard from some people that it's some of his best work, and then I've heard from some people it's not. I don't know. I think there are always going to be outlets for people, and sometimes they might not be the outlets you prefer, but maybe that's the outlets you get based on how you act. I don't know. It's all to be decided. I did find it notable that Mark Maron, who I feel like has done a couple Netflix specials in a row now, is filming his new special this week, and I believe it's going to Amazon. So the comedians even finding some competing buyers for their specials.
We're all gonna end up on Tubi. Watch. But those were the movies and stuff for this week. We have two final things before we get into the recommended of the week. I'll start with the first one because the next one's going to be one that you and I both recommend. But did you get to catch any of the Zootopia Plus 6-episode shorts on Disney Plus?
I haven't. I liked the movie. Is it worth then going to the show? Because I've been sort of hit on miss on whether or not I check out these shows. Like the Big Hero 6 show happened. It's just like I don't think that's for me. Yeah.
and then the Monsters Inc. one happened, and then the other one happened, and the Cars one. They all just happened. So this is the next one that's happened, and it's all right. It's cute. It's pretty much you take the movie, and you find those little bits in between. When Judy left at the beginning, what are the 5 minutes that happened to the parents where they were there? Did the kid go missing? You know, when she saves the rodent girl from the donut. Okay, what led to that moment right there? That's all the movie is, and I've realized this is the world that we're on now in. You remember this, right? Back in the day, when we wouldn't have a full movie,
the direct to DVD stuff,
those VHS 1.5s, and you'll get like the whole movie that was the original, but from the perspective of like a side character. That is where we are at now with these Disney Plus series, I guess. Over the weekend, I also noticed that because we now don't have Disney Channel original movies and they're the Disney Plus streaming movies, that they've taken all of the OG classics that we know, and you can't search them up anymore. You can no longer, Zach, search up Life Size. It is no longer available. You would have to search up The Wonderful World of Disney, go to the season, and find the episode titled Life Size. They are now episodes, according to IMDb. So some interesting things that are switching over on Disney in order to be able to have room for these Disney Plus, originals. They want that to be the name that people remember, and they're kind of like vaulting the other ones. But this is all right. It's cute for what it is.
Rebrand them.
I was impressed with the animation. That's always our worry, that they're going to downgrade a little bit. But I thought the animation was still done very well. It's all the characters that you like. It fleshes it out enough.
Well, is it all the characters you like, or just the ones that weren't top billed? Like, is Jason Bateman in this at all?
like, I guess cameos. I guess I didn't check to see if it's his voice for grunts or
Mm,
some of the talks, but it's meant to be all the side characters to build up and flesh out
right.
the world. Um,
Yeah.
I would recommend the Godfather one. I thought it was funny.
Cool.
They
Cool.
practically Godfather to it about how they got there to Zootopia. So they're cute little shorts. Zootopia Plus. Probably finish it in an hour.
Yeah.
Half
I
an hour.
mean,
Yeah.
they keep doing these like quick binge series, like the I Am Groots and stuff, and yeah, some of them are better than
Iron Roots was
others.
cute. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the one that we love, I think there are 2 episodes, maybe 3 episodes. We got the whole thing, and I'm ready to binge it. It's one that
Yeah.
I've been saving. We will literally be watching stuff, get tired of it, Enola or whatever it is that's playing, and then just go watch a Mythic Quest episode. Season 3 is here, and if you've never seen any of it, I would highly, highly, highly recommend it because I am so jealous that you get to experience the first 2 without
Hmm.
having to get all the spoilers and stuff. Because Zach was the one who put this one on my radar. This is when he had these inklings, these foolish thoughts of Apple TV Plus being as good as HBO back in 20. Like, this man was going crazy. I didn't know what he caught during that summer,
20,
but I checked it out.
2020 was a hard year for all of us.
It was a hard year, and I was like, man, this man's making some crazy claims. But in time, they won Oscars, they've won
Mhm.
Emmys, and they've won my heart with Mythic Quest, especially because this is, as Zach has been putting it, the show that you could just put on in the background and doesn't feel like background watching. Because this is
Mhm.
one of those that you want to background watch it, but you also want to be paying attention because you don't want to miss the jokes. You
Yeah.
don't want to catch that reaction that someone's making in the back. Like, these are characters that you're following through and through, and everyone has this dynamic that they play off with each other. And I mean, it's a well-oiled machine at this point.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. It's like, I think that in the first 2 seasons, you can see them still trying to figure out what some of the characters are there for, figure out some of the dynamics, figure out what's funny about all of their characters. And in this season, there's no questioning it, no debating it. Imani Hakim is one of the actors who I feel like has been kind of underutilized for the first 2 seasons of the show. She was one of the testers. And she's got some funny stuff to do this season. They paired her a lot with Rob McElhenney, and they make
Yes.
for a really fun group. I really love Charlotte Nickdow, the female lead of the show, who is
Oh,
just,
Poppy?
yeah, she's so hilarious and just allowed to do the kind of like hilarious and occasionally humiliating stuff that I feel like female comedians don't often get as many opportunities to do. Like, she's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the Caitlin Olsen of this show in that they treat her just as terribly in sometimes as they do D on It's Always Sunny, but she's so funny at it. She's so like charming and sweet as well. It's just a great dynamic. I was telling you that I think, like, first of all, we talk about it on Intercut a lot. I really love the workplace comedy. I feel like it had been neglected for a little while as a lot of the streamers and networks moved away from the half-hour comedy, and now we see them sort of re-embracing it. There's more and more of these workplace comedies popping up, stuff like Abbott Elementary that is getting a lot of plaudits. But for me, this is my favorite of all of them at the moment. This is the easiest hang.
Wow.
This is the most consistently funny. There's no moment where I'm spending time with a couple of characters and like kind of just sort of waiting for Danny Pudi to come back on screen. I like them all, and I've liked pretty much every episode. So it's to me my favorite, just like straight comedy, not counting the shows like Barry, not counting the shows like Atlanta and stuff like that. Just straight comedy. I really love Mythic Quest. Can't recommend it more highly.
Easily. And I think what elevates it to, you were comparing it to those other shows, right? Where it's like, it's not up there with those like prestigious dramas, but they'll have episodes, as I was pulling up right here, with F. Murray Gray, like flashback stuff where you're like, oh, this is
Yeah.
taking like an extra little degree to it.
Mhm.
This isn't just another, day at the office. We're throwing it back. We're getting some backstory to it, and it fleshes out the world a lot. It makes you pay more closer attention to it. So highly, highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah, Ronitas in the live stream is asking if we have any idea why F. Murray Abraham left, because he's no longer on the show, unfortunately, in season 3, because he was also a fun part of the show. I honestly, I kind of feel like there's just a chance White Lotus paid better than Mythic Quest, and he jumped ship.
And they allow him to
Maybe
do more.
it's
It's too packed of a cast over here, and I've been hearing that he's hilariously perverted
Yeah.
in White Lotus. So yeah, I'd probably agree with you. Maybe he
Yes.
stole something. Let's just start that rumor. Maybe F. Murray Gray just stole something. All the
Nobody likes
copies of
F. Murray
Amadeus.
Abraham on the Mythic Quest set. I've heard a lot of rumors about that.
Like I want to say that, but the tribute episode that they give to him is too
Allegedly.
beautiful. It's too beautiful to ever think
Yeah,
that he actually had a
exactly.
problem.
Right. Although let's throw an allegedly before somebody gets mad at us.
Exactly.
Allegedly, it's
Reportedly,
supposedly.
allegedly, supposedly.
Yeah.
But let's get into, or before we get to the picks of the week, shout out
Yeah.
to all of the Intercuties.
Yes, let's do it. Let's talk about the wonderful Intercutie Plus patrons, those people who are supporting the show and supporting our hearts. They are Ewan, Julieta, Garrett, Tim, Elizabeth, Josh, Ashley, Michael, Matt, and Mr. Kobayashi. Our Academy level members are Tushar, Marion, Cademan, Connor, Pete, Sean, Ricky, Whatsamata, and our newest Academy level member, Joe, who I actually got to send a message to. But
I think
shout out Joe. Yeah, welcome to the team. And of course, the biggest thanks to our producer level patrons.
Go.
They are Awkward and Uden Veer. Thanks again for all of the support. And a reminder that you too can become an Intercutie Plus person at patreon.com/intercutpod, where you can sign up for patron benefits like early access to the Intercut episode outlines, access to our private channels on the Intercut Discord, and an invitation to our monthly patron Google meetings. The next one happening right after this weekend must-watch stream. Art, what do you want to talk about later today with the Intercuties?
Gonna have to be what's it called, Spielberg, because will be watching one of your other top picks of the week right after this. Or actually, no, I got too many. It's gotta be a Glass Onion one, I guess, because that's what I'm watching immediately afterwards. So
ooh, you got a good week of the movies. You're seeing Glass Onion this week. You're seeing Fabelmans this week.
Zach, whatever you recommend to me in the next minute is literally my screening schedule for this next week, starting today.
Oh man, so maybe we should get into it with our picks for the week, the movies that we are recommending people check out over the next weekend. So it's your homework between now and the next time we're back on the Weekend Must Watch. Art, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so my picks for this week, starting with the ones that you could stay at home, that are so good if it's playing at a theater. Try to go see it. I'd give this one a solid junior price, and maybe even with a rewatch a little bit higher. It is Netflix's The Wonder, a rated R mystery thriller that was on my radar during the festivals because I saw it playing there. It's got a really good director, but it's got the girl, the one and only Florence Pugh. And I'm just not going to say anything about it. It's a mystery of a girl who is not eating, but she has survived this much, so they call in a nurse and a nun to come check on her, to figure out what is going on. And that's all you need to know. Beautiful looking movie, beautiful performances. It's the main reason I say if you'll have it at home, but if you can catch it in a theater, that'd be pretty solid. But it's definitely one of my top 5 recommendations of this week. And I know you liked it too.
I did like it. I liked it a bit more than I even expected to, if I'm being honest. It has this kind of look and feel of maybe a more prestige-y, literary adaptation drama, kind of quieter sort of film. And I think it just has a little bit more unexpected under the surface than I thought I would get. You mentioned that mystery aspect of it. When it gets later into the film, it kind of gets to some sort of disturbing and uncomfortable places. And it is a quiet movie. It's a bit slow, so know that going into it. But I think the place that it ends up is really intriguing. I like this one more than I was expecting to, even than I was expecting to after the first half of the movie.
Easily. So I mean, it's Florence. You can't go bad there. It's the better Florence Pugh movie that's streaming out on those services this week.
Exactly.
But another one that I have, and this one's going to be split. So if you can catch it in theaters, go catch it in theaters. If not, wait till it gets on Showtime, which I guess is not going to be Paramount Plus. I'm not exactly sure. But keeping with the docs from this week, Nothing Lasts Forever is another South by doc that looks at the diamond industry. And what a facade it is, bro. This is that doc. Catch this one, watch this one, learn the ethics of business more than just a diamond industry. Apply the rules and the principles that they do in this movie, in this industry, to anything else that you may have in your life. And you may be a con, but you will be very, very, very successful. I would highly recommend having this one on your radar. Like I said, it'll have a theatrical run this week, but starting next week, it will be out in theater or on Showtime. So
nice.
Have that one there. Another one.
Showtime documentaries have been killing it.
They're good, dude. Uh,
Yeah.
they are pretty good. I just wish
Yeah.
Showtime was killing it because it's not.
Right.
Another one that I was able to get an early screening to, and it's starting to roll out little by little. I'm assuming.
Mm.
If not, I'll keep this quick. I thought it was coming out during Thanksgiving. It's not. Pinocchio, really good. Moving on. EO. EO is coming out this weekend. EO is a movie that we caught in New York. I think this thing played at Cannes. This donkey has traveled everywhere, and it travels everywhere in this movie. We have been debating what the best donkey of the year is between Zach and I. I am still firmly Team EO. He's
I'm
firmly Jenny.
Team Jenny. Jenny from
Team Jenny.
Banshees.
That's
Yeah.
cool. That's all right. He's going for the supporting. I'm going for the lead over here. EO is a very cute, very beautiful movie. Highly recommend having it on your radar, but it is also very weird. So check the trailer. If a donkey feature-length film is not for you, I recommend it at home.
Yeah.
But if it does
I
intrigue
would
you in any way, shape, or form, I think it's worth. A matinee.
I would recommend this to anybody that watches sad videos of animals on TikTok.
Oh my gosh! If you liked our Gunda recommendations, you're gonna love this one. And then my final one for the week. This is the only one I haven't seen, so it is my most anticipated. People have got this at
Ooh.
festivals. I have seen nothing but great trailers. Hell, I was looking to find a new theater to catch this one, just to try something new on the menu. You know, maybe something a new seat I haven't been in before. But this trailer does not stop playing. I am surprised that I haven't like memorized it and spoiled the whole thing in my mind already. But I am excited for this rated R comedy horror thriller about a bunch of people who get together to try some chef stuff. Zach hasn't told me a single thing about this movie, so I'm still very excited to go see it. I feel like I know everything, but I don't know anything at all, and I'm glad to see that it's been getting a good reception.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a fun one. It's a really tight and interesting thriller. There's greater subtext to it too, if you want to read into what it's trying to say. But mostly, it's effective and fun and darkly delicious, I guess we can say. I maybe wanted a little bit more in the end. Left me a little bit hungry, as sometimes great restaurants do. But it doesn't mean it's not a amazing fun time at the movies.
Okay, you saying it's a little tiny food?
Yeah, it's the little tasting menu kind of thing deal.
That's what the movie is. You thought it was more like that than a whole. Okay.
It wasn't a
Gotcha.
cheeseburger. Yeah.
All right, so I'll have another thriller to actually eat. I'll go to Popeyes afterwards. The Popeyes.
Exactly.
Zach, what is your top 5?
Ooh, okay. So my recommendations for the week, picks for the week. My first one, I'm gonna give it to the boys, Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson, because they've got a new film called Something in the Dirt. It's in theaters now. It'll be on VOD a week from now, and you'll be getting an interview with your Intercut boys, asking them all about how they put together this really interesting film, one of our favorites that we caught at Sundance earlier this year. It's about these two guys who live in the same apartment complex, discovering something weird, something in the dirt, and trying to figure it out from there. And the thing that I think is so enjoyable about it is it really is kind of this like movie version of a deep dive. It feels like falling down a Wikipedia rabbit hole, because they're going back and forth with their different theories and trying to contextualize what it could be with other societal trends and conspiracy theories and stuff. It's just got this like madcap energy. I love how quick it moves, especially with their editing choices and all the cutaways and stuff like that. It's really, really fun, a really good time. Maybe the best sci-fi I've seen this year, or at least top 5. I guess After Yang is maybe in that competition, along with Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes. But a really effective little thriller, and one that I would recommend to just about anybody. So Something in the Dirt, definitely worth checking out. And check it out before. Oh, yeah. I think I saw an interview where they were saying how you should go through their catalog.
Yeah.
Although they didn't know where to put Something in the Dirt in that order.
Yeah. Because this is like the IPA of their stuff. Like they're going full primer in this movie. So if you're a fan of a lot of those movies, you know, the Under the Silver Lakes and such, that is this film.
Right.
But I think you'll appreciate it more because they are writer, directors, gaffers, editors, VFX. Like they do everything. When one is on camera. When one is in front of it, the other one's behind it shooting the other. And I think watching their filmography leading into this makes you appreciate it more.
Definitely. Another pick of mine that is in theaters this weekend is She Said. This is a new journalism drama from director Maria Schrader, who previously did Unorthodox, which a lot of people really liked on
Oh, the
Netflix.
show. Okay.
Yeah. But it's also got an excellent cast starring Zoe Kazan and Carey Mulligan as the reporters Megan Twohey and Jodie Cantor, the women who really did the hard work journalism and tracked down leads and tried to source all of the stories about Harvey Weinstein. Because it's one thing to have rumors and have hearsay going around, but to actually kind of lock people down and get them to speak on the record is tough work. And I think if you like journalism movies, if you like that sort of like investigation style film, stuff like The Post, stuff like The Paper, you might enjoy this one. I think it's effective in sort of a beat by beat thriller, showing how this story came about. But it's also like not necessarily the most like artfully directed or stylized film. People speak very directly, and the cinematography as well is kind of just sort of depicting, not necessarily like interpreting. I think it may be, while it is powerful to hear the stories assembled in this way, and it's honorable to kind of give it this sort of treatment, I think it fails to necessarily have like a deeper impact, because it feels a little more Wikipedia-ish than art film-ish, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. All right. She said.
Yeah. Still a recommendation, though, and especially because it's probably going to get in the Oscars race somewhere. So
Yep.
if you want to be up to date on all those films, worth catching. It's good.
Early
Maybe a
screenings
little.
tomorrow in Chicago. Go vote with it.
Yeah. Ooh. Maybe a little bit better. And this film is only going to be in theaters in New York and LA this weekend before it expands next week, the Thanksgiving week. One of our favorites from the New York Film Festival is Bones and All, the latest from Luca Guadagnino, another collaboration with the boy Timmy Chalamet, although it's Taylor Russell who really steals the show here, as they play a pair of young lovers on the lam. This is like a somewhat genre-ified version of a Bonnie and Clyde story and something like that. I called it Prestige Twilight. And I just think this is like one of the most interesting, earnest films of the year, in depicting this like story of young love on the run. It almost has the feeling of like a queer love story or like a Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. And then just having this sort of like slice of horror thrown on top, that it's not the most indulgent or bloody, but it's got some unsettling ideas hidden in there too. Really great performances, really effective movie. I wouldn't be surprised if this one is a bit of a hit with the Timmy fans.
Easily. You didn't hear the news? They had to shut down a screening because a wild horde pack, whatever you want to call it, of Timothée Chalamet fans came in, and they said it was a security breach. I saw the footage of it. Yeah, probably. Like, they look so harmless, but there's so many of them. It's just like a wave.
It's the numbers, man. It doesn't matter if they're young or weak or whatever. It's numbers. You can't stop them.
Look, shout out to the boy. What I'm seeing here, a lot of people always call out the Leo thing, but I think it's because they always undermine Robert Pattinson. We have been there for the Robert Pattinson indie era of having so many people going to go see The Lighthouse who are Twilight fans. Like, what are they doing at these movies? So I love that Timmy can get all of these people to go see a 2-hour. Wait till you see what it is. To take a bite out of a movie like this, I think is very impressive. So that says a lot about Timmy. And I'd be curious to see what more projects he continues to take, because, I mean, believe it or not, he's going to be that gateway for people to try new stuff. And I'm going to double this one up, too, with a thumbs up. It's definitely worth it.
Definitely. Give a quick recommendation to Bad Axe, which we talked about earlier, but since this one is going to be in theaters and on VOD this weekend, it's easy enough. And one of the only movies here that I'm recommending you can check out from the comfort of your own home. Unfortunately, it's just like a big week for these awardsy, these prestige movies to start unrolling. Like we said, we talked about a bunch of films that have been coming out that are potentially contending for Oscars. But my number one recommendation for the week seems like it's going to be the front runner for a lot of awards. It's the latest from the boy Steven Spielberg, The Fabelmans. I got to catch it for a second time last week. And wow, this is a beautiful, special movie. There's so many people who've made these like films that are about the power of cinema that it's kind of a joke at this point. But when Steven Spielberg wants to do something, you let Steven Spielberg do whatever he wants. I'm just obsessed with the shots in this movie. There are so many amazing shots that have no business being incredible, but he'll just like whip them out in the middle of another scene. You know, there's like this, there's this dramatic scene, and then all of a sudden it'll do like an amazing little move from Michelle Williams's face to her hands, but you still see the reflection of her face in the piano. And I don't know how Kaminsky and Spielberg do it, but they keep doing it. The final shot of this film, we're going to talk about it for so long because it's so good, and I cannot wait. I'm excited. You're seeing it this week.
I'm seeing it in a couple. I keep thinking it's today, but I was like, oh no, that's Glass Onion. She
Yeah.
said tomorrow. Yeah, so I am very excited. I will be watching it multiple times too, and I've been seeing nothing but just great things come in.
It is an incredible film, and seems, at least for now, like the front runner for Best Picture at the Oscars. I don't know if it would be my selection, but it definitely deserves to be nominated for a lot of stuff, and I won't be upset if it wins, because it's been a little while since Spielberg had a Best Picture winner, and this is one of the best pictures of the year.
Poor guy.
Yeah. Oh man, he's never gotten any respect.
Oh, but that's some solid picks. As always, Zach posts these up over on Intercut, social media, so you can see our top things that we are looking forward to, stuff that we've seen, wrapping up everything from the weekend must-watch in movies. But
yeah,
a big thank you to everyone for watching. We're curious to know your thoughts down below. We are about to enter what I'm going to say is probably the biggest week. Like starting Thanksgiving all the way until the end of Christmas, New Year's is just... We're just going to be loaded with a bunch of stuff on a weekly basis.
Yes.
In theaters, at home. We're so lucky that we were able to catch so much of the stuff from Thanksgiving, because I wouldn't have time to go get some turkey, because there is a buttload that is going to be coming out in the next week. So keep an eye out for all of that stuff. Let us know things that may be missing on our radar, because it's that end of the year time.
Yeah. You know what? I'll throw out one more recommendation, even though it's not in our graphic. Tar is on VOD tomorrow? Bro, Tar... Let's talk about a movie, because Tar is a great movie. I rewatched that this weekend too. That might be the movie of the year. Like, no shots to anything else we talked about, but Tar is a movie.
Tar's good. You know what else is good? Atlanta.
Ooh.
And it just ended, but that would be a whole other hour. As of now, Zach, outro.
Oh my God. Yeah, we will be back later this week, because there's so much to discuss this time of year. But that is all for this edition of the Weekend Must Watch here on the Intercut podcast channel. You can catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by following me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd. They are all at ZShevich. That's ZSHEVICH. And check out my YouTube and TikTok channels at Multiplex Show. Artwork and people, find more from you.
You can find me over at LME Explain on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, or every week here on the Intercut Podcast.
You can listen to every episode of the Intercut Podcast on iTunes, on Anchor, on Spotify, whatever your favorite podcatcher is. I happen to like Overcast. And then make sure you subscribe not just to the audio podcast, but to the video feed as well on youtube.com/IntercutPod, where you can catch our bright smiling faces as we break down the latest in entertainment. Find new episodes of The Weekend Must Watch streaming on our YouTube channel every Monday. And please leave a comment, like the video. Consider heading to iTunes to give us that much requested 5-star review. Shout out to our listeners in Belgium and Poland for putting us on the TV and film podcast charts out there, like our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter pages. Support our Patreon. All of them are at IntercutPod to get updates throughout the week from me, from Art, from all the guests that we feature here on Intercut. And make sure to hit the link in the description to check out our Discord channel and join the conversation throughout the week. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, good afternoon.